In a world consumed by noise, external pressures, and shallow attachments, we often lose sight of ourselves. We let emotions cloud our judgment, chaining us to relationships that slowly erode our spirit. The Stoics knew that the only path to true freedom was the mastery of the self, the understanding that external forces, including relationships, are beyond our control. What lies within our control, however, is how we respond. To understand the gravity of toxic relationships, one must first grasp the nature of the self and the wisdom of detachment. Seneca once said, "As long as you live, keep learning how to live." In our relationships, this learning comes through practicing control over our emotions, especially in those that seek to diminish us. Toxicity thrives on our inability to sever unhealthy attachments, and to rise above them, we must understand the Stoic path, embracing discomfort, sharpening our reason, and liberating ourselves from destructive bonds. The following are not merely tips or advice. They are unspoken rules drawn from the deepest wells of Stoic thought, rules that will guide you through the emotional labyrinth of toxic relationships. Let us begin, not as solitary travelers, but together, bound by our shared struggle to find peace amidst the storm. 1. The power of detachment. Know what is truly yours. Epictetus famously said, "Some things are up to us, and some things are not." This simple idea is the cornerstone of Stoicism. In toxic relationships, we often find ourselves trying to change the other person, believing that we can fix, save, or heal them. But the Stoic mind recognizes the futility of such efforts. Others' actions, behaviors, and emotions are beyond our control. What is within our grasp is our own response. We must learn to detach ourselves from outcomes we cannot dictate. When you free yourself from the expectation that others will behave differently, you gain power. Toxicity cannot survive where expectations do not exist. The Stoic accepts people as they are, not as they wish them to be, and in doing so, they free themselves from unnecessary suffering. 2. The art of silence. Guard your inner peace. Seneca once wrote, "If you really want to escape the things that harass you, what you're needing is not to be in a different place but to be a different person." Often toxic relationships draw us into endless arguments, draining us of energy and peace. The Stoic learns the art of silence, of stepping back and choosing not to engage in battles that lead nowhere. Silence is not weakness. It is a profound strength. It is the act of conserving your inner tranquility in the face of chaos. The next time you feel the pull into a toxic exchange, remember this: you are not required to participate. By mastering the art of silence, you can starve toxicity of the attention it needs to survive. 3. Recognize the source of your pain. It is not them, but you. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." The core of Stoic wisdom lies in the recognition that our suffering does not come from external circumstances, but from how we perceive and react to those circumstances. In toxic relationships, it is easy to blame the other person for our misery. Yet, the Stoic knows that the real source of pain is our own attachment, our own desire for things to be different. The moment we understand that we are the architects of our own suffering, we gain the power to dismantle it. Toxicity loses its grip when we stop feeding it with our perceptions and desires. 4. Embrace the impermanence of all things. Let go. Heraclitus, a pre-Stoic philosopher, famously said, "No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it is not the same river, and he is not the same man." The Stoics embrace this idea of impermanence, recognizing that everything in life is transient, including relationships. To hold on to something that is decaying is to deny the natural flow of life. Toxic relationships thrive on our fear of change. We stay because we are afraid of what lies beyond, afraid of being alone, afraid of the unknown. But the Stoic understands that everything is in constant flux. And to resist this is to fight against the very nature of existence. Letting go is not an act of weakness, but an acceptance of the world as it is. 5. Use adversity as a tool for growth. Strength through struggle. The Stoics viewed adversity as an opportunity for growth. As Seneca said, difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. Toxic relationships, while painful, are a crucible for the development of character. Each hardship we face is a test of our inner strength and resolve. Rather than viewing the toxicity as something that is merely harmful, the Stoic redefines it as a challenge. It is through these struggles that we refine our ability to practice self-control, patience, and wisdom. Every argument, every slight, every moment of suffering is a chance to exercise our virtues. Toxicity, when approached with the right mindset, becomes a teacher. 6. Control your emotions. Do not let them control you. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. These words from Marcus Aurelius remind us that the Stoics' power comes from within. Toxic relationships feed on our emotional reactions, pulling us into anger, frustration, sadness, and despair. But the Stoic, grounded in rationality, knows that emotions are fleeting and that we are capable of controlling them. By practicing emotional regulation, we can rise above the destructive pull of a toxic relationship. When we stop reacting impulsively and start responding thoughtfully, we become immune to the chaos around us. The Stoic cultivates emotional discipline, knowing that inner peace is found not in the absence of conflict, but in the mastery of the self. 7. Set boundaries, but without attachment. In Stoicism, boundaries are essential. However, they are not set from a place of anger or resentment, but from a place of wisdom and self-respect. Epictetus said, "Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens." This applies to relationships as well. Setting boundaries in a toxic relationship is not about controlling the other person, but about protecting your own space. The Stoic understands that they are responsible for maintaining their own well-being, and that includes saying no when necessary. But once the boundary is set, the Stoic lets go of the outcome. They do not cling to whether the other person respects or resents it. They simply enforce it with quiet strength. 8. Know when to walk away. The courage to choose freedom. Seneca's words echo in our minds. It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult. One of the hardest lessons the Stoic must learn is when to walk away. Toxic relationships often hold us with chains of fear. Fear of loneliness, fear of failure, fear of the unknown. But the Stoic knows that true freedom comes only through courage. Walking away is not an act of abandonment, but an act of liberation. It is the recognition that staying in a relationship that diminishes your soul is a greater loss than facing the unknown. The Stoic chooses freedom over fear, knowing that the only prison is the one we build for ourselves. 9. Practice forgiveness. Release the poison of resentment. Epictetus teaches us, forgive others for their offenses, but not for the damage they caused you. Forgiveness in Stoic thought is not about excusing toxic behavior, but about releasing the resentment that poisons your soul. Toxic relationships often leave us with deep wounds, but to carry anger and bitterness is to allow the toxicity to continue even after the relationship ends. Forgiveness is not for the other person, it is for yourself. It is the act of releasing the burden of anger so that you can move forward unencumbered. The Stoic forgives not because it is easy, but because they understand that holding on to resentment only perpetuates suffering. 10. Embrace solitude. Rediscover the strength. Within the Stoic philosopher, Musonius Rufus once said, "A man is his own best company." In toxic relationships, we often fear solitude, confusing it with loneliness. But the Stoic knows that solitude is not something to fear, it is something to embrace. Solitude allows us to reconnect with our true selves, to reflect and to heal. It is in solitude that we discover our inner strength and learn that we are enough. The Stoic embraces solitude as a time for growth, knowing that the most important relationship is the one we have with ourselves. Conclusion: the Stoic path to freedom. Ending a toxic relationship is not easy. It requires strength, wisdom, and an unwavering commitment to the principles of Stoicism. But remember, we are not alone in this journey. The Stoic path is one of self-mastery, of rising above the emotional turbulence that seeks to pull us under. Toxic relationships are simply another challenge in our pursuit of virtue. As we let go of unhealthy attachments, practice emotional control, and embrace the impermanence of life, we find that we are stronger than we ever imagined. The Stoics taught us that freedom lies not in changing the external world, but in mastering our inner world. By following these unspoken rules, we not only end toxic relationships, we transcend them. We rise above the storm, calm and unwavering, guided by the wisdom of those who came before us.